Let's add the fractions 1 and 7/8 plus 5 and 1/6 using our rules on the right. To add fractions that have common denominators, we'll add the numerators and keep the same common denominator. The problem that we're faced with first is that our two fractions are mixed numbers. So our first goal will be to convert these two fractions to improper fractions. Next, we'll convert each of the new fractions into a fraction that has a common denominator, and then we'll use our rule on the right. So to begin, we need to convert 1 and 7/8 and 5 and 1/6 into two fractions that are improper fractions. Here's how. In our first fraction, for example, we'll multiply 8 times 1 and then add 7 and write that over the denominator 8. So this becomes 8 times 1 plus 7 over the denominator of 8. Plus, and in our second case, 6 times 5 and then add that to 1. So 6 times 5 and add that to 1 over the denominator of 6. Simplifying using order of operations, 8 times 1 is 8 plus 7. Our first fraction as an improper fraction is 8/15/8 plus our second fraction will become 6 times 5 is 30 plus 1 is 31/6. We'd like to add these two fractions using our rule next, but we don't have the same denominators. So we should find the common denominator and then convert these fractions so that they will have a common denominator. How do we find the common denominator? Let's use multiples of the denominators. To list the multiples, for example, for 8, we'll start with the first multiple of 8 and add 8 each time for future multiples. So 8 plus 8 is 16, 16 plus 8 is 24, 24 and 8 is 32, 40, and so on. The multiples for 6 are, the first one is 6, and we'll continually add 6 for future multiples. 6 and 6 is 12, 12 and 6 is 18, 18 and 6 is 24, 30, and so on. The least common multiple is also the least common denominator. In other words, the first number that appears in both of these lists. Well, we see in here that the first number that appears in both lists is 24, and that will be our common denominator. Scroll this down a little. So, we'd like each one of these fractions to have the common denominator of 24. The next rule will be to change each one of these fractions so that they will have a common denominator of 24. Well, to do that, let's multiply the first fraction by something, top and bottom, so that the bottom will be 24. What times 8 is 24 would have to be 3. So multiplying the bottom by 3, we'll multiply the top by 3. 3 times 15 becomes 45. Our new equivalent fraction, 15/8, will be 45/24. In our second scenario, what number multiplied by 6 will give us 24 will be 4. Multiplying 6 by 4 means we'll also multiply the numerator by 4. So 6 times 4 is 24, and 31 times 4 is 124. We now have two fractions that have the same common denominator, which means that we should add the numerators and keep the same common denominator. So what this means is that 45 over 24 plus 124 over 24 becomes 45 plus 124 all over 24. Now we can add the numerators. So 45 plus 124 becomes 169 over 24. If the directions told us to write the answer as an improper fraction, we're done. 169/24 is the answer. However, since our problem started off as a mixed number, maybe we should write our answer as a mixed number. So to write 169/24 from an improper fraction and convert that to a mixed number, we'll divide 24 into 169 evenly. 24 divides into 169 7 whole times. By the way, 24 times 7 is 168. We would have 1 left over. So that 1 left over becomes the numerator as the remainder over 24. So as a mixed number answer, 7 and 1/24 would be the answer. So 169/24 as an improper fraction is the same answer as 7 and 1/24 as a mixed number. Either one is the answer to our problem.